Hello, and welcome to your weekly briefing for Global Conflict 1. In this video, I'll be covering days 95 to 101, and as always, doing my best to document the various political changes that have occurred in this world within that time frame. So, a couple of the big topics that I'll be touching on later in this video. A ceasefire with House 19, could it be true? Is House 2 really on the brink of demise? And House 14 re-emerges with a small presence on the map. But first, I will continue in my tradition of providing bi-weekly coverage of the alliances. So starting off from the top, we have House 2. In that alliance is House 2, House 6, House 7, and House 12. In the House 15 alliance, we have House 15, House 18, and House 4. Moving down to South America more so, we have House 10, House 14, and House 11. Over in the land down under, we have House 17, House 16, and House 20. The existing alliance from House 19, in that alliance is House 19, House 5, House 8, not much of a presence on the map for that right now, House 13, and probably House 1. Independent houses that really have no affiliation with any others, to the best of my knowledge, are House 9 on its own and House 3. And House 9 has been sort of farming up a storm for the last, probably a month now. So yes, like I said, big changes could be on the horizon for the alliance against House 19. So earlier today, this is kind of breaking news. House 15 finally agreed upon a deal to sign a 7-day ceasefire with House 19 while they work out potential terms of peace, essentially. There hasn't been much word on other alliance members working out a peace deal with House 19, but if House 15 is going to break from that alliance, we could see other houses following in suit. It is especially interesting that House 15 decided to break ranks here, because up until this point we had all been hearing that the four major powers against House 19 were all entered into sort of a consensual agreement amongst themselves that neither would go ahead and make peace without the consent of the others. Now, I'm not sure that House 15 has gone ahead and done so, but they are the first ones to have declared officially that they are working on a peace deal with House 19. None of the other houses have actually mentioned that they are working on a deal, and they have one at least has commented on the fact that they are aware that House 15 is now working on a peace deal with House 19. So it will be interesting to see where that goes in the future weeks. As I said, there are tensions between these houses in the former, what it might be now, might be a former alliance. So if anything, there might be some, once again, we're seeing perhaps a reoccurrence of what went down with House 9 and House 10 when they attempted to sort of make peace with House 19. It's really going to be, things can change quite a bit in the next couple of weeks, I think. So then the second big news story, of course, is from House 2, based predominantly in Canada, I think we can agree. One of their major factions have now left the House, and that would be the Anthrax Raise Group 420. This, according to the sources that I've heard from, is House 2's main hitter. It has the majority of their fighting players in it, so this, for House 2 to lose this faction, is quite significant, even if they really haven't lost a lot of land because of this. There is word that the alliance has for quite some time been limping along, I guess you could say. One of the things that really held them together up until this point was the unified effort against House 19. But now that House 19 might be making peace with more houses, will House 2 be able to hold their alliance of four houses together, or will we see the other members of that alliance splitting off and sort of going their own way? It seems that the Anthrax Raise Group has sort of preemptively done that already, and it will be interesting to see if they maybe side with House 15 in this, or what their plans are, because I've heard that The House 2 members some of them are split between loyalties. Some of them favor House 15 more than others do. Finally, the last big story that I would call it was a faction from House 10 has left House 10 and joined House 14 to give them a bigger presence on the map. That faction would be Hulkamaniacs, I guess. Now, there could be some potential speculation on why this would happen, as House 10 is currently in the lead and set to win the first Glory Star in this world. One very likely theory behind this move is to make sure that House 14 doesn't actually drop out of the race anytime soon. So by moving one of House 10's factions into House 14, it will bump them up a little bit in the glory race, and apparently House 10 themselves are not going to feel the hit too much from that, as they are making more than enough glory each day to safely win this round. And that is another interesting point, is that one of the other things I've heard is that amongst the allies in the alliance against House 19, it has sort of been agreed that House 10 will be taking the first star, so we might not see any actual conflict until after that first glory star in the glory race is won. Any conflict, that is, between former allies against House 19. So with the big news out of the way, let's cover the various land exchanges that have occurred within the past week. So here in Central America, as might be predicted, we have Guatemala changing hands from House 10 to House 14. This, of course, is a part of the entire faction change, the Hulkamaniacs changing from House 10 to House 14. In addition to Guatemala, we have Colombia and the north part of Brazil. Moving up towards the top of the map, we have Norway flipped from neutral back to House 19. There was some pressure, I think, last week from House 2, but then as problems within House 2 emerged, it seems that House 19 has pretty safely taken back that country and that county, or that province right there. Norway is safely in the hands of House 19 once again. Germany has flipped from House 2. If we can zoom out here a little bit. Yes, now you can safely see who controls the country. Germany has flipped from House 2 to House 19. Kazakhstan has flipped from House 19 to House 17. Now, last week, House 17 did control House 17 did control the eastern province in Kazakhstan, but at that time, House 19 was still in control of the country. Obviously, that has changed this week. Moving a bit further to the east, in Japan, we have had House 2 flip that back from House 13. Last week, House 13 had flipped it from House 2, so it seems that that's a little bit unstable right now. Down in the Philippines, they have flipped neutral from House 10. I'm not exactly sure what that is all about. In the Middle East, we have, Turkey has flipped from House 15 to House 4. Armenia has flipped from House 15 to House 4. Iraq has flipped from House 15 to House 4. And keep in mind that House 15 and House 4 are both allies, so this is likely just political shuffling, moving the various houses and factions around the place to suit their own ends. That's not really that significant compared to enemy land exchange or land taken from enemies through military conquest. Obviously not happening there. Right, so Belarus has flipped from House 6 last week to neutral this week. Ireland, over here in the United Kingdom part of the world, has flipped from House 2 back to House 19 again. There has been sort of an ongoing struggle between House 2 and House 19 over the island of Ireland. They were switching it on and off, trading between controlling Northern Ireland and controlling Ireland, interestingly enough, and it seems House 19 has come back and actually managed to retake Ireland. Central Russia has flipped from House 19 to House 17. This is rather interesting because Western Russia, which happens to be a little bit more central, I'm using Google Translate on this, so if I got those names wrong, I want to blame them for it. But this county, right, or this province right here, it's actually a county, but it is listed by Google Translate as the western province of Russia, whereas this one is the central province of Russia. It doesn't make any sense to me because central Russia is actually a little bit more western than western Russia. So that, I hope that gives you some background there for what I'm talking about, though. So what's interesting about this is Central Russia has flipped from House 19 to House 17, but at the same time, Western Russia has flipped from House 17 to House 5, and House 5 is a part of the House 19 alliance. Southern Urals has flipped from House 8, a part of the House 19 alliance, to House 10 in the past week. Afghanistan has flipped from neutral to House 18, part of the House 15 alliance. The UAE has flipped from House 15 to House 4. Netherlands, over in Europe, has flipped from House 2 to House 19. Western Mongolia has flipped from House 15 to House 19, and there is a likely chance that if the peace process works out between House 19 and House 15, that they will be giving up Eastern Mongolia within the coming week. That is, providing that deal works out. Urals has been flipped from House 5 to House 19. Interestingly enough, this sort of swapped with Siberia, now flipping from House 19 to House 5. Taiwan has flipped from House 2 to House 12. North Korea has flipped from House 15 to House 17. Zambia in South Africa has flipped from House 10 to House 14, understandably, with that same faction changing houses from House 10 to House 14. And that pretty much sums up the various country, province, and county changes in the past week. I'm sure I overlooked a couple of them, but I think I covered the important ones, and probably even some that weren't as important. As always, I do look forward to hearing from you in the coming weeks. If you have any information you think would be important to helping shape this report, do feel free to get in contact with me in game. My name is David Spy. I look forward to hearing from you. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next week.